Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today we have translation services, so please listen out for your instructions for this afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. Bon après-midi tout le monde. I will give the instructions in English and then in Haitian Creole. Ma ba instruction yo en anglais et après ça en créole haïtien. So to activate the Zoom interpretation, please click on the interpretation globe in the lower right side of your screen and choose the language in which you would like to listen and participate. If you're connecting to Zoom through your phone, please touch the three dots at the bottom right corner where it says More. Tap Language Interpretation, choose the language in which you would like to listen, and then touch Done in the top right corner. En créole. Pour activer l'interprétation Zoom, là, t'en prie cliquer sur ballon qui dit interprétation qui est en bas à droite écran et puis choisis langue où vous voulez participer. Si vous êtes connecté sur Zoom avec téléphone portable, t'en prie, tapez trois petits points yo, qui sont dans le coin en bas à droite écran, côté il dit More ou bien plus. Et puis choisis interprétation langue. Choisis créole haïtien et puis après ça, moyen done ou bien terminé pour Karl rentrer dans l'écran. Have a good afternoon, a good meeting. Passez une bonne rencontre. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marie-José, for your instructions. If there are any questions, you can put them in the chat. We want to be as inclusive as possible in including translation for today. Welcome all, and thank you for joining us for the first installment of Political Pulse, Voices Across the Caribbean. I am Davia Hilton, co-coordinator of the Stronger Caribbean Together Network. The SCT is a collection of grassroots organizations, lawyers, and academics for food, land, and climate justice. Each time we are gathered, I am always amazed by the depth of work from our colleagues all across the Caribbean, fighting for connected issues in our own silos, within our own national and political context. We inspire each other and gain a broader understanding of our own place in this fight. So we wanted to share some of what we do, some of the work that is being done on the ground in the different countries to try to connect the issues, link what we're seeing and feeling, and gain a deeper understanding of each other and strengthen one another in our own advocacy for climate justice, human rights, food and land justice, and constitutional reform. First, I'd like to see where everyone is from and get to know you a little better. Please drop your flag and introduce yourself in the chat. What issues are coming up for you? What speaks to you most, if anything? And anything you'd like to share about yourself, we'd love to hear from you. Let's see some introductions in the chat. Welcome again, everyone joining. And you can proceed to do that as we go along. I will take the time to acknowledge all of you. Thanks again. All right, so today we have 4 speakers over the next 2 hours. You'll get your chance to ask your questions in the Q&A segment after each speaker. You are welcome to keep putting your questions in the chat as the event progresses, and we will get to your questions at the end of each presentation. The event will be available on YouTube. We're streaming live right now, but it will be available long after this afternoon session. So there's still time to share it as far as possible as we hope to continue these efforts in other installments of Political Pulse and with our fundraiser that's happening this week. We're continuing our work on Caribbean solidarity. With no further ado, let me introduce our first speaker for this afternoon, Margaux LaRocque. As a child growing up in beautiful, bountiful Dominica, much of Margaux's time was spent outdoors, trekking through the bush, eating every fruit in reach, chasing waterfalls, swimming in clean, vibrant rivers, riding waves at the beach, and ending the day with awesome sunsets. This love for nature developed into a passion and a necessity to protect it, which is not an easy task when others are so intent on its destruction. Upon returning to Dominica 38 years after being displaced by Hurricane David in 1979, LaRocque became inspired by the Dominica Conservation Association, joined the team, and rebranded the NGO to what we know today as WAVE. Waitukubli advocates for viable environments. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Please correct me, Margaux. Accepting the challenge of being a custodian to rescue, reclaim, and restore environments under stress. Holding the seat of vice chair for 4 years and now president of WAVE, LaRocque continues her duties, documenting infractions, engaging with the public to bring awareness, and communicating with ministries through proposals in finding solutions concerning these issues. Her dedication to the cause has opened doors to larger groups of activists, such as Island Innovation and Stronger Caribbean Together, fighting common causes by building bridges toward a better tomorrow. First, Margaux has asked us to play a little video, and then you will hear from her on the political pulse in Dominica. Great, everyone let me know if you're hearing.
If Dominica Could Talk by Arundel Thomas. If Dominica could talk, all I have is a voice to undo the folded lie. If Dominica could talk, what would she say about our moral decay as we think it's okay to be totally blind to the ills that exist in these times? Yes, what would she say if she looked at the way that we treat our land, dumping trash everywhere without caution and care, cutting trees with great flair? Would she wail in despair if Dominica could talk? If Dominica could talk, would she hail a hooray when in this modern day our library languishes away while a state palace is built just for public display? What would she reveal of the underhand deals by political scamps, plotting scam after scam, getting rich overnight, no regard for the plight of the poor citizens' fight to do everything right in God's sight? If Dominica could talk, if Dominica could talk, what would she disclose when the farmers take blows, no support from on top, when they can't market their crops? Would she hail without fail farmers Randy and Louis, Massese and Dorothy, who sweat and who toil, giving life to the soil? Would she pay tribute to them, these great women and men, if Dominica could talk? If Dominica could talk, what would she tell of those priests and pastors, folded arms in deep prayers, piously paying no heed to despicable deeds of some persons in charge who tell lies in barrage? Would she expose their charade if Dominica could talk? If Dominica could talk, what response would she give that would put us at ease with Chavez and Chinese, Petro-Caribe and lies, high fuel prices and cries? If Dominica could talk, what comment would she make in regret when she gets her eyes set on these vagrants and thugs that corrupt our youth with their drugs? Would she tell the police of those in high office who control the narcotic business if Dominica could talk? If Dominica could talk, What great truths would you tell about Lennox and Paul, about blessings and all, Angelo, Athie, and Matt, on morning shows and all that, who day after day expose questionable acts, confident of the facts, so that all men can hear without dread, without fear. Yet those that we pay snub us day after day, no intention to go the right way. If Dominica could talk, would she be silenced each time for being out of line by the shameless bands of apologists and fans without love for their land, who worship the ground that their master walks on and excuse every wrong just to keep their king wearing the crown? If Dominica could talk, would a noble tongue say that the national song has been right all along in its lyrics so strong? Strive for honor, each one. Except now that we face such a heinous disgrace, government living in space would not take her advice, but with a disqualifying vice, slowly keep plotting on nation's demise. If Dominica could talk, in her national pain, would she boldly exclaim, "Sons and daughters, what are you doing? Stop the hurting and the lying. Stop the stealing and deceiving. It is time for nation building. Do the right and not the wrong. Leave that crowd and make me proud." If only Dominica could talk. If only Dominica could talk.
If Dominica could talk, but we can definitely hear from Dominicans. Margaux is going to share with us. Go ahead, Margaux.
Wow. Thank you, Davia, and good afternoon to everyone, SCT and the esteemed panel. I chose this form of presentation to open my presentation because first, I'm an artist. I did not say that in my bio, but first, I am an artist, and a picture says 1,000 words. But lately, I haven't been painting as much because I've been focused on my environment, on the environment and the environment of my brothers and sisters in the region and the world by extension. If Dominica could talk, a poem by Arundel Thomas, a gentleman I feel honored to have met, and this guy is just awesome. All right, he's been waiting for me to do something like this, so thank you, sir. It's a work in progress, and I will be editing and adding some more footage to the poem. Dominica is pregnant with issues, and this is why it's like an ongoing thing, you know, with this poem. I can keep adding every day. Like right now we have Bike Week, and it's just causing a lot of distractions in the city, in the capital. I have to close my window so I can do this with you guys today. All right. So if you hear any loud, that's what it is. All right. So talking about the issues. If you want to know about the issues, you can ask Atherton Mate. If you want to know about the issues, you can ask Henry Shillingford, HMS Laws. These guys are the original people that opened up the NGO, that started the NGO, Dominica Conservation Association, which is now rebranded as WAVE, the Waitukubli Advocates for Viable Environments. Waitukubli is the actual indigenous name of Dominica before Columbus changed it. So that's why we use it for this. Yeah, back in the day, Athie and Henry, they fought. There it is. They fought the issues concerning copper mining in the Central Forest. They won that case, but now the Chinese are here and they're looking at that same area to go in to mine stones for the airport. They already blasted 2 mountains, and they're on their 3rd one. So it's just madness in the one-man wealth. We call it the one-man wealth because it's one man. It's no joke. All right. it's becoming a nightmare down here, and we're losing hope. But the people like myself and members of Wave, Atherton Mate, we're still fighting. We're still going on safaris, documenting, more infractions, looking to see who's actually doing something right. When you're quarrying stones for such a large project like the airport, are you mitigating, for instance, the water flow when it rains, the silt that comes from quarrying? Are you trying to keep that from entering our rivers? Because as you know, we're supposed to have 365 rivers, but really we have 7 main rivers that branch off into smaller streams, and a lot of those streams are now dried up because we're not taking care of our rivers. I returned home on my own volition 8.5 years ago, expecting a renaissance of sorts, only to experience Hurricane Maria 1 year later. That's 18 September 2017. It was a complete nightmare, and the aftermath was even worse, because what I saw as a resident of the capital was a lot of looting, and no stores were damaged in the capital, yet people broke in to the stores, and the first thing they took was rum. Believe it or not, was rum, because for some reason rum seems to be the thing of choice. It's like you're in distress, it's rum. Campaign time, the campaign season for the Dominica Labour Party, they feed everyone rum. So everyone's drunk for days. They just, so there's no thinking, there's no conscious thinking going on. All right. It's not just rum, but the following days after the rum was the mattresses, stoves, hair. They were stealing hair, toys, food, water. We had no lights. We had no tap water. So the people who live in the city were at on their knees to receive something from the trucks passing by. And if you didn't vote for Labour, you're not getting anything. That's just how it is. You're not getting a bottle of water. You're not getting anything. Okay, there was mud everywhere. It was a 4-foot flash flood from the Rosa River that came down, into the middle of the city. The sea also joined it. So you had sand and mud mixed, all over the place. The only people that actually got stuff was the "if you're not red, you're dead" subjects. That's it. They're the only people that got materials. We're talking about wood, galvanized, windows, doors, cement, accessories. Like I love my anthem, but I have changed the words to "all for them and none for us." That's my new ending to that song. This hurricane, right? It sparked a kind of division in the communities, because if your neighbor votes for red and they're getting water, they're getting bags of food, they're getting materials, and you're Dominican but you're not getting anything, you're going to start having a problem within your community. And that's what happened all the way through 2019's election. We just saw the same thing happening. So it sparked a thing within people. It was there, but it just got worse. It got worse, and the building of hotels and apartment buildings, which are substandard buildings, by the way. They moved everyone in there after, not everyone, but people whose homes were damaged, they moved them in there. And now most of those villages are dead because the apartment buildings are outside the villages. So it's become just everywhere's a dead zone in Dominica. And and the only time you see action is Carnival, Creole Fest, which is coming up in November. And that's when you see it. It takes outside people to come in to make Dominica look like there's something going on. But if you go outside right now in the capital, you'll see that Roseau is pretty dead. All the villages are dead. The only reason you're hearing noise is because it's Bike Week, and you have young men and women from all over the region who come here with their motorcycles for racing and all this stuff. So it gets very noisy, and it's a big distraction in my world. So I'm not a fan at all. And then let's go back to rum and the campaign. That's the beverage of choice. This is the beverage of choice, and it's just numbing the brains of Dominicans. To the point that all the dysfunction going on here has been normalized. It's normalized. We had one garbage truck we had. It ended up in the ocean somehow. The guy jumped the rail and ended up in the ocean. So now we had to wait for another garbage truck. We got another garbage truck. This is for the whole entire island, mind you. It's for the whole island. Now you have garbage pileups all over the place. All over the place. And hey, no problem until you get leptospirosis. Then it's a problem. Then it's a problem. Burning of tires on a landfill, that's a big problem. But it's like, well, so it is until people start getting sick. We recently went up to a meeting, African myself, Envisioning Fund, and another member of WAVE. We went to a meeting up in that area, and there's a community that live close to the landfill. And a lot of people have gotten sick. They have, they can't breathe because it's not just smoke you're breathing in, you're breathing in all the particles because you're burning tires. Now, why are they burning tires? It's mosquito season. I mean, if you Google what to do with tires, you can do so many things. Why burn them? This is 2025. Why are we still doing this? Why are we still doing it? It's just pure madness. Until you get respiratory problems or worse, somebody dies, then it's okay. Then it's an issue. And here's the thing about this: a petition was signed in 2004, okay, with a letter advising the government to shut down that landfill. And again in 2011, still no progress. So the people, and I live in town, and the lab house is maybe a mile from me, so I can taste it in my house when that's happening. And the fire was going on for days and days, and they covered it up with dirt, So the fire was still burning under. And when they dig into it, you just see a big explosion come on because of the methane. It's madness. It's pure madness. I'm laughing because if I don't laugh, I'll cry, you guys. I will cry. All right, the issues, derelict vehicles, $8 billion missing from our treasury, from the CBI passport sales. Where is it? Where's the money? No one seems to know. No one seems to know. There's no law, no constitution. And that is what the man said. Our PM said that. No law, no constitution can stop him from doing what he wants. That is it. And that's what I've seen since I've been here. No law, no constitution. We're on remote control. I heard this said recently, times of stress signals for growth. There's signals for growth. If we use it properly, we can grow through adversity. Now, if this is true, we have enough stress in Dominica to become so strong, if this is true. But it takes the people, okay? And our problem is the people, because they keep accepting, they keep normalizing the dysfunction. You want to talk about stress, guys? People fight here for nothing. They want to chop each other with cutlasses for nothing. I can't even compare our situation to Haiti. Haiti's like, wow. But Dominica, we need to stop the madness. The violence is up, the economy is down, stress. Jobs are scarce, prices are rising, our children are straying, Chinese are everywhere. Peaceful protesters pay the price for maybe two antagonists in a crowd, getting tear gassed, fired upon with rubber bullets, and later one by one arrested. Whilst criminals go about their day, business as usual, no problem. If you speak out, you're making the country look bad. And speaking out in Dominica can sometimes create a backlash. As you heard in that poem by Arundel Thomas, he referenced the bombing of Mano. And it happened. They've done that not once. If you speak out, they'll come and bomb your house or send their snipers to attack you or something. But I keep talking. I'm always under stress, but I take it. I take it because I can handle it. I can handle it. If Dominica could talk, boy, she would say a lot. The victimization is real. And as an artist, an activist, and an environmentalist, expressing myself is a liability. But I've taken that responsibility. I thank you guys for listening. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer at this point.
Thank you so much for sharing, Margaux. I know it's a lot to go through, and each time you have to speak about it, it's just a reminder of how much there is to overcome.
Yes.
So let me hear your questions in the chat, and you can still continue to ask your questions after. I'm seeing people have been introducing themselves. Thank you for that. Right. I will allow you some time to come up with your questions for Margaux. And in the meantime, I will introduce our next speaker because I know it takes some time sometimes. Our next speaker is Emily DeCou. She's a passionate resource efficiency advisor from the Cayman Islands whose work sits at the intersection of environmental justice and community empowerment through ethical, civic leadership and transformational governance. She brings a multidisciplinary, future-oriented, systems thinking approach to decision-making for Caribbean development, one rooted in ancestral wisdom, regenerative systems, and stakeholder-led collaboration. Her work champions interconnected solutions that honor Caribbean culture while confronting the twin pressures of the climate crisis and our colonial legacy, embodying a belief in co-created futures where participatory democracy and resourcefulness are not siloed but nested. As a former two-time political candidate and vocal advocate for sustainable systems, M is part of a bold wave of leaders across the region, creating a legacy by carving climate-centered policy, not for power, but for purpose. M's mission remains constant: to ignite collective responsibility and realign development with the well-being of people and planet. Currently serving on the board of the National Trust for the Cayman Islands and continually collaborating with many other local activist organizations, she humbly shines as an example of benevolent leadership in the Caribbean, visionary, grounded, and accountable to future generations. Thank you for joining us, Em.
Thank you so much for having me. And Margaux, it was really, really thought-provoking to hear your presentation and hearing the parallels, in Cayman in some ways. So I'll just get right into my presentation, folks. Hola, bonjour, hola, taigwe. My name is Emily M. DeCou. I apologize in advance for not having my camera on today. I do have some challenges on my side today, so pardon me for not having my camera on today. I'm a sustainability consultant and the founder of a local consultancy in the Cayman Islands, True.m, which stands for Total Resource Use and Efficiency. As Davia explained, I'm also the Secretary of the National Trust for the Cayman Islands, and I will be holding that position until 2026. I am also the leading member of Amplify Cayman, which I have been since the about middle of 2021. I was also a political candidate in the 2021 and 2025 general elections in the Cayman Islands, and I have been a legal sector and financial services industry professional since about 2013. A little bit about me. As Davia explained, I'm a passionate resource efficiency advisor from the Cayman Islands. My work sits at the intersection of environmental justice and community empowerment through ethical, civic leadership, participatory governance, and transformational governance. Excuse me, that should say participatory democracy and transformational governance, excuse me. My work champions interconnected solutions that honor Caribbean culture while confronting the twin pressures of the climate crisis and our colonial legacy, embodying a belief in co-created futures where resourcefulness culturally is socioeconomically nested. I am a former two-time political candidate and vocal advocate for sustainable systems. And although I am not a politician, my mission as an activist remains constant, which is to ignite collective responsibility and realign development with the well-being of people and planet. A little bit about Amplify Cayman, which is a sister organization to local organization Cruise Port Referendum Cayman, which is an organization that was born in about 2017 when the local government at the time, which was very development focused, decided that they were going to build a cruise pier. And it was what was happening without much debate. So the people rightfully protested that and went through the process of initiating the first people's initiated referendum in the Cayman Islands to demand that a referendum be held to determine whether or not the government should build cruise berthing facilities. That never went ahead in the original form around 2017. It took a couple of years and then COVID hit. Fast forward, the government that was elected in 2021 was sustainability focused. However, they were, let's just put it like mildly, usurped by the same government that was development hungry that wanted the cruise pier in 2017. So when the election in 2025 happened recently, it was pretty much a battle between parties who were not developmentally minded and those those are the two differences. It wasn't how you would sort of expect in like let's say American or Western politics where it's very conservative versus very liberal. It was everybody's pretty conservative from you know social justice perspective, you know, up for debate on how people are politically, economically, or and fiscally, but when it comes to whether or not they are development hungry, that was really a big thing that people in the last two elections, and when I say people, I mean the electorate, were very concerned about. And that's what I stood for and I stand for is sustainable development, and so hence being a part of Amplify. So Amplify Cayman is a collective of Cayman residents who create campaigns and have done community outreach that highlight environmental and social justice through balanced development with a focus on empowering participatory democracy. So what does that kind of entail locally is, a lot of people will chatter and speak amongst themselves about how they wish things were different, but they don't have the understanding because we don't have, robust civics in our curriculums locally about how people can participate in their democracy. People just have to kind of figure it out and overhear from their elders, and that doesn't actually translate to you know, as time has gone on and the dynamics of what a society needs have changed, it's not translated to a lot of modern thinking. It's sort of the stagnant status quo, just continuously, perpetuating. So we seek to encourage holistic systems thinking, which is that understanding of the interconnectedness of climate, its impacts on housing and justice and health, and the multifacetedness of health in and of itself. So some of our campaigns and publications have included the People's Sustainability Charter of 2021, which we're very proud of, as well as the Democracy Over Destruction campaign of 2023. So one thing that we really like to impress when we do any kind of presentation about our work is that we are very pro-sustainable development. We are not anti-development, because we've come to learn that you kind of almost have to speak the language of and as much as you don't want to, and as much as time is going on and you're like, I don't think we have any more time to waste being nice about this. You do end up sort of having to be political and nice and polite and professional and all these things just to move the needle a little bit. And we've found that has made some headway in not coming across in a polarizing way as a advocacy group. So Cayman's current development is rather linear and extractive. Our demand democracy over destruction campaign of 2023 was in relation to the proposal to put a highway through the wetlands. And when I refer to the wetlands, I'm actually referring to the largest contiguous wetland in the Caribbean, which is the central mangrove wetlands in the Cayman Islands, in Grand Cayman. So rather than put in place a reformed public transportation system, they want to mash up the wetlands and, build this highway through a belt of Cayman parrot habitat, and the Cayman parrot is our national bird. So it's not that there's a lack of, and I'll speak about this later in my presentation, it's not that there's a lack of knowledge in Cayman and expertise of how we should be doing things right in terms of development, but there's a lot of a disjointed approach to development. So Amplify's work really comes to try to sew that all up in a society of about 90,000 people, of which half of that are work permit holders. So it's a pretty small community spread across 3 islands. And even though we are small, the issues that we have are solvable, and that's what we try to do, is we really try to spark that different dialogue that challenges the status quo when looking at development. So in the Cayman Islands, I have been pretty focused on the political sphere, probably for about the last 10 years or so. I had a seed planted in me by my grandmother. We were just having a debate, not a debate. I was not having a debate with my grandmother. Excuse me, but we were having a lively discussion. It was election time, and she was talking to me about who she was going to vote for, and I was shocked because it was the same person who's now been charged with this fraud and that thing. And, because they've been in office for 40 years, you're just going to keep voting for them. And, she just said that I should think about running for office one day. And the seed just got planted, never thought about it. And fast forward, things were moving in a direction where the governments were just not keeping pace with modern society advancements from what I could see, with the introduction of internet in the Cayman Islands, around the early 90s. I was born in the early 90s, so growing up and having access to information and seeing how the world advances and not understanding how we are such a smart society with the financial services industry, and yet we cannot keep up with things that equate to human rights. And sustainable development, etc. So currently, we have some pretty antiquated legislation. I will speak to the fact that as it is today, same-sex marriage is currently unconstitutional. We do have somebody who has been appealing to overturn the Civil Partnership Act, in that because we locally, and we being the government at the time when the Civil Partnership Act was enacted, and I won't go down too much of a rabbit hole of that because this is a different conversation, but all of these layers are interconnected. But we ended up compromising with the Civil Partnership Act. Somebody within a deeply conservative religious community has been trying to appeal that, which could have implications on other British overseas territories. So we have a local nonprofit group that has been working very tirelessly to make sure that at the very least the Civil Partnership Act remains in law, and that's great. But at the end of the day, it's governments not having the forward-thinking mentality and the open-mindedness to consider that all these issues are interconnected, our environment, our people, and our community, and how that translates to socioeconomic growth long term. So that's where I've tried to come in and reshape thinking, because, like I said, we don't have that civic education in our curriculum. So currently, we don't have in our public schools subjects that foster, really culturally rich life skills. And if you do have access to those types of things, your parents are paying an arm and a leg to send you to school. And even then, it's not like you're just learning about it. You're still going to come out the system. Chances are going to school to become a lawyer or an accountant or something. More recently, with the last election, we have a new government coalition of two parties that are the two parties that were formed, like I spoke about earlier, who were anti the party who was pro-development. I hope that makes sense. So this coalition, we are not, as an electorate, very concerned that they're going to be making the same shady deals and as corrupt as the last government. So that is very good. And in the 3 months that they've been in power, they've made some advances, such as the proposal of a fishing ban so that only Caymanians can fish. They've reinstated the National Conservation Council, which was pretty much destroyed at the end of last year by the previous government, who are the pro-development government. That being said, they did appoint, this coalition did appoint a speaker who has gone on record multiple times to bash the National Trust. As an example. So, it is what it is, I guess. Other things that they've done, this coalition include introducing a proposal to increase the minimum wage from the start of next year, and doing a mandatory rollover for expat civil servants, which has been is one thread in a sentiment locally of just seeing our islands shift not in a direction that we signed up for. But at the end of the day, when we didn't get here without a Caymanian at some point signing over what we hold dear. And what drives me personally is, I don't have any political science background, but I did grow up with the beautiful national song of the Cayman Islands, which is titled Beloved Isle Cayman, and it speaks to our verdant trees so fair, which refers in part to our mangroves and all these things that really make the existence of me as a human and my community worth existing. So, and what makes us unique and keeps us going in our culture. And a lot of people overcomplicate the issue of politics and of why people need to do what they need to do and why we need to change policy for the better. But trying to just bring it down to earth of like, it's complex, don't get me wrong, but it's not complicated. We need to do the right thing. And changing languages and vocabulary around how people talk around how they can be a part of change and igniting that inner voice that says, if not me, who, if not now, when, and I'm somebody, I can be part of the change. So that's a big thing of what I try to do. So I'll just keep going. My experience with politics, I did put this in the slide and I'll just read verbatim. I entered politics because, as I spoke about earlier, I could envision Cayman taking pride in respecting our culture of resourcefulness, which is one shared by the Caribbean and other island nations, and shaping policy and practices around that culture. I had the mentality, that positive change was the goal, not the seat. So even though the incumbent did return to office, I dove into political activism, joined Amplify and other NPOs. Running in 2021 as a 27-year-old seemed to have encouraged a few more young people, and in the political environment locally, I'll say young here is under 45, because we have a lot of experienced professionals who are politicians locally. Leave it at that. And what I noticed was that although it inspired more young people to join, that did not actually really equate to being as politically modern as I had hoped. And in 2025, this really became evident. With it being the first election to have parties. I was part of the Caymanian Community Party. in that election. So I would say 2025 was a harder election cycle, given the recent US election. Locally, it emboldened a lot of people to have very narrow-minded views, and people who, I would have thought would never have supported the, you know, president of the United States did and do, and unashamedly so, which is quite shocking and scary. So people who now have very strong views of immigration and development and health and education and how we should be treating people in our rainbow community, et cetera. It's become quite scary. I'll be honest in that regard. Being a person in that environment myself. So although I wasn't elected, I am committed to being an active stakeholder and serving as the corporate secretary of the trust and as a political change maker in my own ways. And whilst I may not run for office again, I'm very committed to mentoring other young future political leaders. And more about that will become evident as time goes on. So Amplify seeks to, going forward, act as a stakeholder to shape legislation. Our campaigns are around participatory democracy for environmental justice, cultural preservation, and socioeconomic health. And whilst Cayman does have a culture that makes us unique, and we do have things that make us unique, what I will say is that we are, I think, overdue for a cultural renaissance in the sense of culture being the skills that we teach our children, what we need to do to survive. It's not what we're currently navigating, evidently. So that's another layer that makes this work a little bit more challenging, I'll say. But we continue. We speak to students, we support decision makers, whether that means teachers call me every now and again to come speak to their students, or policymakers will consult us about different ways of thinking of how they could do things in the last couple of years, which has been great. So when we speak to students, we try to inspire that, not all careers outside of the office are anything to look down on. And those are good, necessary jobs. And we also have in the past supported educators with accessing climate education resources that are contextualized to the Cayman Islands that have been developed by the National Trust, et cetera. We've also got plans, I'm sure, long-term to join up with this new coalition government to help them deliver on their campaign commitments in tangible versus performative ways. So they all campaigned on the formation of some kind of national development plan with a human capital growth plan factored in. And we're committed to ensuring that the National Conservation Council remained intact, and the National Development Plan would, just reinstill the spirit of why that legislation was enacted into the community. So, as well as partnering with the National Trust to ensure that we're continually resourced to protect the built and natural heritage sites through education and conservation. So in Cayman, a lot of people know us for our financial services industry. They have undoubtedly heard the trope of us being a tax haven, but we are also a very stunningly biodiverse, rich set of 3 beautiful islands with a society of people who are quite hospitable, like many others in the throughout, as you'll see throughout the Caribbean. We have our own style and way of doing things. And we have certainly no shortage of knowledge that we feel could see Cayman embrace a circular, regenerative economy and other systems. We see that youth engagement and participation are increasing. This is mostly due to more young people feeling the effects of no development plan being enacted by successive governments that were driven by greed. And as we have seen, gentrification has ensued. So locally, there's also division socially. historically it's been a very us versus them, us being multi-generational Caymanians versus them being persons who just arrived here. But what I try to remind people you know, I understand that there are traumas that have been inherited due to different disasters, and our society is still working through those, but to open people's eyes to just because somebody's an expat doesn't mean they're pro-development. I've met and I work with so many people who are not from here and who want to do nothing more than to give everything they can in a reciprocal way back to the Cayman Islands, and it's wonderful. And I've also met many of my own peers who are multi-generational Caymanians who couldn't care less, who will sell away their generational land just for a buck, who will mash up the place with no regard and just litter, and they don't come and they don't participate in any nonprofit activities, and it's sad. So shifting language is a lot of, I think, the work that Amplify Cayman does, opening people's eyes to a different way of thinking that's different from the status quo, and we do that in the ways that we can. We try to be proactive, but have to be reactive at times. We can't anticipate every bad decision that a development-minded government's going to make, but it involves shifting that language, like I said, and increasing what people know about why things are the way they are, and why things aren't as positive as they think they are, namely because of the effects of colonialism. The fact that we have these cascading crises from the climate crisis, and the list just keeps going on. But as more young people are feeling the effects, more young people are standing up and taking ownership of the fact that they can be part of the change, and it's very, very inspiring. Some of these groups include the likes of Protect Our Future, the Junior Rangers, which is a group of young Caymanians who are part of the Mangrove Education Project nonprofit locally. There's also the youth council of there's actually youth councils for both of the political parties that are now part of this coalition. So I should have included both, but that's great. There's also the Sustainable Cayman Ambassadors Program, which is under 30s young professionals in their own rights who are deeply committed to shaping policy and educating the community on how we can, as a small coastal island, partner with other small coastal islands regionally and globally to combat some of these parallel issues. And lastly, the National Trust does have education programs which advocate for conservation. So in closing, I'll just say, in a nutshell, the biggest thing we try to impart is that knowing better equals doing better. We try to remind people of the ethical obligations they have to do right by future generations through our consumption practices, through our careers, and through when we cast our votes. We know that perfection is not the goal, that progress is, but we all can and should be doing something positive to survive, to protect what we love, and to thrive into the future. And I will leave it at that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for speaking with us today and taking time to spend with us.
Thank you.
If you have any questions for M, please let us know. I'll give you time to type it out. In the meantime, we'll address some of the questions for Margaux. Margaux, Wisvel is asking, where you were talking about the actions that where they broke into the stores to take rum and mattresses, in what context were these actions taking place?
Well, this was right after Hurricane Maria. The same morning, because I live in the capital, like I said, before the sun even came up, people were already walking through town. And then it's really, a lot of young males broke into our supermarkets and just destroyed everything, even the big bags, because there were no bags. So the big bags of rice, big bags of potatoes, those kinds of things, they emptied out the food and put the rum and the cigarettes in those bags. And yep, That's it. They broke into courts, which is they sell furniture. They broke into their safe. A lot of them were running around with a lot of money in their hand. It was just pure madness. I did not expect that because I said I lived in the States for 38 years. 28 of those years were in Miami. So I was, I am hurricane preparedness all the way. That's me. It comes, we clean up, and we move on. But that's not what happened here. It just went into just a chaotic situation, which brought the RSS down. Mia Motley sent her RSS to I don't know, not protect us, protect certain stores like Digicel. There were like 5 police out there at all times from Barbados, Jamaica, from the region, and and the rest of us just had to sit there and watch and protect your homes and I had to actually stop some youth, about 14 of them, who came across the street at a hardware store about 3 days later after the hurricane. They said, oh, everybody's shopping and they didn't get to shop. I'm like, that's not shopping. You guys are stealing. And they wanted to break in there. And I told them, don't do it. They started cursing at me, telling me to go inside my house, go and clean my house and go inside my house. I said, I'm not going nowhere. You're not breaking in there, And they moved on. A police came, one officer came around the corner at that point, and I told him, look, that's what they're up to right now. They just want to break into places and just take things, because they didn't have. That's it.
The desperate.
Yeah, so that's it. It was just a maddening situation, and like M was saying, we have to change the what's the word? Change the narrative. We cannot be like this. It's I mean, come on, the Hurricane Maria was serious. It was devastating, and not many people died. I was surprised, but a lot of houses and got destroyed, and now they're all in apartments. That's what Skerritt has done. Instead of helping rebuild the homes, he's thrown everyone in apartments. So I don't know, and it's getting worse because the kids that are in apartments now, it's become ghettofied. It's ghetto. They're basically in a ghetto. So it's causing that downfall, of their whole culture. They're not used to that. Everyone has a house with a backyard, with a mango tree, with a fig tree, with something planted back there they can go and eat. They can go and sit outside. In an apartment, you're stuck. So I think that's causing a real problem here.
Yes. Follow-up
Hope that
question.
answered his question. Yeah.
It did. Follow-up question from Wisvel is what's stopping Dominicans from standing up for themselves? But I think some of that is answered in what you said, more about the culture and being beaten down. But go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. It's the fear. Everyone, they're very afraid to speak up, afraid to speak out, because when they do, you get rubber bullets and tear gas. That's what our police do to us. And then they make you go to court for years. I went to court for 2 years for walking. We started a walk at Imate and myself started a walk. The first walk, we got 400 people to come outside, which, I mean, it rattled the police department, it rattled the government, and so by the third walk, I was given 2 summons for the second and third walk. And I ended up going to court for 2 years. And then the case was just dismissed. That's when I was supposed to be in Jamaica, remember? So I stayed here because of that, so I would not miss that court date. And they just dismissed the case with no reason. We asked why. They said, oh, just come out there. This is how my people are. The DPP works for Skerritt. The court works for Skerritt. So you never get out of there. Nothing gets accomplished because it's his Dominica. Everything belongs to him. He is actually the headline promoter of this bike fest we're having. Bike fest. There's no jobs for these youth, but they have a bike fest. And they can go and ride bike and drink more rum and smoke weed. Hey, that's what we have, guys. That's what we have.
Thank you for sharing, Margaux. We have another question, this one for Emily. What position did you run for? Is it a disappointment or the obstacles that you see that could prevent you from being elected that made you say that you won't run again?
I ran for the position of Member of Parliament. So we have a parliament system in the Cayman Islands, and we have 19 constituencies. So every 4 years, we hold a general election, and each constituency has persons who run to represent that constituency. So the majority of so how should well, it's like a majority system. So then a government is formed after the election between the majority of people who can get along, whether or not they're of the same alliance or what have you, and we go from there. So I wouldn't run again. I don't think it wasn't so much due to the disappointment, but running for political office is extremely taxing and challenging, and it takes a lot out of a person in every way, and I feel especially after the last election that I might be able to get more done from an effective position serving on the boards that I serve on, where I can oversee throughout an election cycle, right? It's not just a one-off whether or not I win and I do the role of a parliamentarian or not. But to continue working with nonprofits throughout the time and focus on that versus having to plan my work with nonprofits around every 4 years. I have to take off 6 to 12 months to campaign, which is in hindsight now not translating to the goals, right? So it is and it isn't, because Cayman still has a long ways to go to mature politically. So I would really like to commit to mentoring young political future leaders, but really instilling in them the understanding that politics isn't just, you know, your own lived experience, and you have to come into it and unlearn what you were raised sometimes, and in the sense of you have to do what's right. And a lot of people in the Cayman Islands in particular still have this undertone of really conservative religion that guides how they they treat people and work with people, and you know um it's not right, but it's the reality. And so mentoring young people to expand their understanding of what human rights should really look like in this day and age. It's not just, oh, people have access to education. It's that and more. You have to go above and beyond. So I would say that to answer the last part of the question regarding Cayman ceasing as being a British territory, that's a long ways away. Most people in Cayman don't think that, have not thought about that. They are against it. Or if they are for it, they know it's something that's a ways away. And I would say I am for independence, and I'm for it being done properly, and we transitioning to where we stand on our own merit, and we act as though we don't have, you know, a purse to run back home to, which is essentially how we act sometimes. Like we can mash up the place because we can run back to the UK and ask for money to fix it, which is it's just not a way of a society should run. But at the end of the day, we're a small set of islands in a region of amazing neighbors that all band in when trouble hits, and that's I think what counts. But I think it would be a struggle to see us leave the UK anytime soon. But I don't see it being a struggle if we all put our minds to it and made a plan that we could achieve greatness if we do make the decision collectively. And I will leave it at that.
Yes, understandable. Margaux, another question for you. Just a reminder for everyone to also speak a little more slowly for the translators. Yes. All right. So Emma is asking, what are the laws governing freedom of speech or expression? And do you have human rights lawyers on your side when you have these, contradictions with the states?
All right. Well, the law here says that you have the freedom to assemble, freedom to speak, but that's not so, because whenever we do it, we get in trouble. So it's for one set alone that can do that. We can't do it. What was the second part of her question? Sorry.
Do you have human rights lawyers on your side?
Oh, yes. Well, right now, Leslie is handling our case for the Wesley situation with the international airport. Our lawyers here, well, we do have Henry Shillingford from HMS Law, but Henry is getting up in age, and and he's just seeing his country, the one he fought for under DCA, going downhill. And so I try not to add any stress to him, to his life. The rest of the lawyers here, they're no, they're not involved in these kinds of cases at all.
She was also asking, but you did answer a lot of it in your presentation. How does this oppressive regime impact environmental activism?
All right. Well, first of all, we've written how many letters? The first case we did was there was a big excavator in the Layu River. That's our King River. That's where everyone grew up going, because it's wide and it's deep. So that's where we grew up going for Sunday, Sunday picnic. And that excavator had been in there, and we addressed it. We wrote letters to the Ministry of Environment, and there's no response. This is what they do. They don't respond, or if you do get a response, it'll say, noted, we got your letter, and then that's it. They do nothing. Matter of fact, most of the time they'll send police to follow you. There'll be a busload of police just following our group all day, and they get paid for that. So, sometimes they get paid extra, to do that, to put up barricades, to stop us, to, these kinds of things. It's annoying, but that's what it is. All our proposals fall on deaf ears. It's like, here's a proposal for green walls, Roseau. Nothing. Instead, they put a bunch of pots around, wooden pots that have now decayed and fallen apart in a matter of a year and a half, 2 years, and or the paros, as we call them, the crackheads. Yeah, we have crack in Dominica. Will go around chopping the bush, or the plants that we plant, the trees. They just chop it, and the police do nothing about it. The government does nothing about it. It's a waste of time, waste of money. What they're doing, any proposal is just turned down by them, because we don't vote for them. That's the problem. If I voted for Labour, it would be a difference. As a matter of fact, my uncle was the prime minister before Roosevelt Skerritt, the Honorable Pierre Charles, who passed away, and the one before him, Rosie Douglas, of the same thing, just a failed heart, and we seem to think it's a poisoning issue that was going on with the two past PMs. But this is what we have, and these guys were fighting for Dominica. And now we have someone who just, it belongs to him. He does what he wants, when he wants. He does not care about the, implications or anything. It's just, he's the king. That's it. That's what we have, guys.
Thank you for sharing, and our condolences. Thank you all for your questions. Thank you to both of our first two speakers. We have two more speakers for you. First up, help me welcome Wisvel Mondélice. Wisvel has a master's in population and development and currently serves as the communication manager for the Institut Culturel Karl Lévêque, the Société Animation at Communication Sociale, and Sec Janil Luigis. Apologies for my accent. Founded in July 1989, the ICKL defines itself as a center for social intervention and action research in popular education, which aims to contribute to the liberation struggles of the working classes of society, with aims to encourage ongoing critical reflection on the practices of social and popular movements, and support local communities and social and popular movement organizations in developing solutions to cyclical and structural problems. Welcome, Wisvel. He will be translated by Marie-José or Natasha. But go ahead. Oh, so for everyone to hear, please switch your interpretation to English. So if you go on the three dots to the bottom of your screen where it says more, you're going to click on the little globe that says interpretation, and you're going to switch from original audio to English, EN channel, so you can hear the translation. Go ahead, Wisvel. Thank you, everyone.
Merci un pile Davia. M'a salué tout le monde qui a participé dans le webinaire ça. Moi fait Stronger Caribbean Together un pile compliment pour l'initiative ça. Ça qui permet nous joindre information, nous partager information sur le pays nous. Moi espère tout exercice ça a ban nous une plus bonne compréhension sur crise Haïti. Ça média qui ba information en général pas permettre nous gagner pour diverses raisons. Dans ce sens, je vais attirer l'attention bien rapide sur trois aspects parce que je n'ai pas plus de temps.
Okay, we can wait until he gets back and in the meantime go to our last speaker. Then it's Minott. Is this Wisvel back? One moment. I see.
Okay.
I think coming back. Okay, there we go.
Can I continue? Est-ce que moi je continuer ou bien recommencer?
Yes, you can. Go ahead.
Oui, comme pas gain pile temps, m'a souligner trois aspects seulement dans la crise Haïti. Premier partie dans la crise là, c'est échec conseil présidentiel transition à gouvernement. Après premier ministre Ariel Henry te fin joindre l'ordre pour démissionner dans le mois d'avril 2024. Neuf secteurs te signé un accord politique qui relait accord 3 avril pour te diriger transition après Ariel Henry. N'a rappelé neuf secteurs ça a été jeune accord ça après une série de discussions CARICOM t'a commencé à organiser depuis le finissement année 2023. Ces groupes personnalités éminents Caraïbio qui t'a mené discussion ça. Groupe ça joué rôle consultation bon côté CARICOM. Groupe ça gen la donne Kenny Anthony pour Sainte-Lucie, Bruce Golden pour Jamaïque, Perry Christie pour Bahamas. C'est série discussion ça yo qui t'a vinn fait nous gagner yon KPT conseil présidentiel transition qui gagne 9 moun qui a dirigé pays depuis avril 2024. Alors que KPT a sous 3 mois, il y a 3 mois sous pouvoir, bilan li pas correspond du tout à engagement li te prend yo. Défi yo toujours été entier. Pendant qu'il y a un pile scandale corruption et pillage dans les ressources l'État, situation sécurité a vient plus grave. gang yo a pris plus territoire. Yo pas suspend attaquer population malgré présence mission multinationale pour sécurité a. N'a rappelé plusieurs pays dans Caraïbes là gagné contribution yo dans mission multinationale sécurité a qui dans pays a mais qui pas capable résultat. Plus passé 1,3 million moun déplacés en dans pays a cause violence. En plus, mission qui gagne l'année qui pas aucun résultat. L'État haïtien, même s'il y a un contrat avec compagnie étranger, soi-disant, pour venir résoudre le problème de sécurité. Conseil présidentiel de transition, il y a responsabilité tout pour faire élection. Il faut que nous disions qu'il y a 9 années depuis pas aucune élection qui fait en Haïti. Ça qui l'a pays a dans une grosse crise institutionnelle. Côté pas aucune autorité qui a légitimité dans le pays. On a parlé sous légitimité populaire. Dans l'idée pour pouvoir en place la faire élection, il sorti un décret pour lui faire référendum pour changer constitution pays, constitution 29 mars 1987 là. Article 284.3 document ça a dit personne pas doit faire référendum pour demander peuple là s'il est d'accord changer constitution. Tandis que conseil présidentiel de transition voulait faire référendum pour lui venir avec une autre constitution. Avant projet constitution conseil présidentiel de transition voulait faire référendum pour l'IA, gagner une série de changements. Je prends 3 exemples pour montrer une série de changements document ça à côté. Dans le document ça, nous jouons article 123, 124 et 124-1 qui mettait pouvoir exécutif là en bas contrôle président totalement. Article ça dit c'est président qui chef l'État, c'est lui qui chef le gouvernement. Il vient seulement pour choisir un premier ministre pour coordonner action la prend bon côté. Dans bagay ça, parlement sous côté. C'est toute logique organisation pouvoir politique là qu'a redéfini à travers nouveau constitution ça. Exemple numéro 2 nous prend c'est article 65 à 65-1 dans nouveau document, nouvelle constitution qui réduit participation population dans politique pays. Tant que tu as gagné 3 entités dans collectivité territoriale, constitution ça a dit gain D. Li retirer section communale qui était plus près population pour li kembe seulement commune ak département. Ça veut dire population a moins de possibilités pour participer dans la politique pays. Troisième exemple, changement de constitution ça a poté qui grave en pile. C'est dans ça qui concernait commandement l'armée avec la police. Constitution Conseil présidentiel de transition a fait promotion pour l'IA, il dit l'armée avec la police sous contrôle président, c'est président qui a commandé l'armée avec la police. Ça qui représentait une grosse menace pour le mouvement social et populaire, dans ça qui a un rapport avec l'élite revendicative. En plus, les strictions dans le pays a été contesté avant projet constitution ça. Les nous considérer un bon attaque groupe criminel avec difficulté pour bien démarche pour changer la constitution qui n'est pas correcte, nous avons dit qu'il n'y a pas trop de possibilités pour élection faite avant l'année à fini. Jean Conseil présidentiel transition a cléonné ça, a dit ça. Groupe personnalité éminent CARICOM yo qui a discuté sous poursuite transition. Gen acteur politique dans le pays qui a plaidé pour président sorti dans la cour cassation qui c'est première instance dans pouvoir judiciaire. N'a fait connaître position ça tout, c'est position groupe criminel vivent ensemble à porter. Gen quelques autres estricti tout qui n'ont une démarche pour construire un consensus politique qui est crédible. Comme ça tout gen organisation qui plus semblé à préparer l'élection yo pour n'importe les ça t'arrive fait dans le pays. Malheureusement, en général, c'est pays qui a dominé Haïti yo qui toujours bay dernier mot yo dans kasa. Il y a un effort qui doit être fait dans ce sens ça pour diplomatie, ingérence avec domination politique là kaba en Haïti. Mais il y a une bonne autre décision, Conseil présidentiel transition à prendre, qui pas dans l'intérêt nation. C'est cas, pour nous citer un exemple, décret Conseil présidentiel transition à prendre pour créer zone franche dans le pays. N'a rappelé zone franche, c'est un parti dans le territoire pays, une entreprise qui a mel pour le produit bagay seulement la bien pour l'exporter. Malgré l'entreprise ça yo gen avantage fiscal ak douanier, yo pas gen aucune exigence pour yo investir dans zone côté yo installé. N'a pas poursuivre sous deuxième aspect nous voulons souligner pour nous permettre de une compréhension sur crise Haïti. Augmentation zak violence yo pour nous-mêmes c'est un phénomène qui est complexe mais qui a en pile considération nous qu'a fait sous lui. L'idée est claire, Haïti a fait expérience de grande criminalité, je ne dis pas. Dans une époque, il y a une série de businessmen et acteurs politiques qui ont amené groupe géniaux dans le quartier populaire. Ils ont amené l'argent, les âmes dans l'intérêt. Petit, groupe ça a renforcé tête. Ils ont développé une forme d'autonomie. Je dis, il y a un gros moyen l'argent dans les mains. Il y a des armes et paquets de munitions qui facilitent l'opération. Il prend contrôle de divers espaces dans le pays. Et il y a même une liaison avec pays étrangers. En analyse situation ça, qui lui-même lié à l'inégalité sociale, à la misère qui domine dans le pays, gagner trois logiques n'a metté devant l'analyse. Première logique là, violence armée en Haïti liée à l'économie criminelle transnationale. Haïti c'est un marché côté industrie qui produit des armes et munitions fait un pile profit. N'a parlé surtout industrie qui produit des armes et munitions dans le pays États-Unis. D'après le Bureau des Nations Unies contre crime et drogue, plus fort armes illégales qui circulent en Haïti sorti dans le pays États-Unis. C'est même États-Unis ça, je dis, qui mettait Haïti sous liste pays côté gagné organisation terroriste qui a fonctionné. Mais ce n'est pas seulement trafic d'armes et munitions qui a fait en Haïti. D'après Leslie Voltaire et Fritz Alphonse Jean, qui est membre du Conseil présidentiel de transition, Haïti, il y a trafic moun et trafic organe tout. Deuxième exemple, pour nous parler sur violence qui y a en Haïti, la deuxième logique, c'est rapport qui gagne entre violence avec un enjeu électoral. C'est vrai, attaque gang yo force la population pour quitter un paquet d'espace dans le pays. En même temps, tout, yo contrôler une population électorale dans divers autres côtés dans le pays. Ça veut dire, si force l'autre yo pas arriver prendre contrôle espace qui en bas, mais gang yo jodi, c'est allié gang yo seulement qui prend pouvoir dans l'espace ça yo, jou va gagner élection.
One moment, please. I'm no longer hearing the translation. Let me just. Great, thank you.
Troisième logique.
We can.
Troisième logique qui en analyse sous situation violence dans le pays, c'est une logique pour déstabiliser force interne pour empêcher le pays à prendre route progrès. Violence armée a une grosse conséquence sur toute initiative qu'a prend dans le pays dans le niveau politique, économique, social et culturel. Principale préoccupation presque tout le monde dans le pays, je dis, c'est l'insécurité. Sur le plan individuel, vulnérabilité acteur fait le plus difficile pour yo goumer pour une transformation qui est plus profonde. Nous plus à goumer pour nous survivre face à la fragilité et contexte là. Mais sur le plan collectif, il y a un peu de difficulté pour nous prendre ces initiatives ou bien pour initiative nous prendre rester vivant. Et dans le contexte à tout, ou joindre en pile chirépite, dans mi-temps, force qui t'a doué envisager transformation yo et agir dans ce sens ça. Yo plutôt dans chirépite, même sous question violence yo. Il y a des gens qui, pour dialogue avec gang, tant coup gagner acteur qui pour mais y prend pour retirer contrôle en série quartier en bas mais gang yo. Dernier parti nous voulons souligner dans la crise Haïti, c'est résistance peuple haïtien fait malgré ça difficile. Situation difficile en pile dans le pays, ça qui empêchait l'île revendicatif yo fait parce que l'île revendicatif pas possible dans un contexte côté ces fausses armes qui dominé. Mettez sous ça revendication sous question souveraineté alimentaire, sous question droit pour paysans guetté, sous question protection environnement, sous question travail. Revendication ça a bloqué par rapport à crise institutionnelle là. Parce qu'il n'y a pas aucun élu qui l'a pour prendre revendication peuple là. Action plaidoyer tout, yo limité. Ça ne veut pas dire pas gain action qu'a posé. Ça ne veut pas dire non plus pas gain initiative qu'a prend. Institut culturel Karl Lévêque que moi représenté dans le réseau a une initiative la prend bon côté différents groupes. Mais initiative yo toujours limitée par rapport à contexte là. Mais nous pas camper, n'a continuer. ICKL parmi diverses autres structures, organisations qui prend initiative dans contexte difficile là. Malgré difficulté contexte crise la côté yo, capacité résistance peuple haïtien pas mourir. Face à menace attaque gang yo fait comité vigilance pour sécuriser quartier. Bon côté institution et organisation qui dans mouvement social et populaire, tant qu'on t'a dit, il y a un pile l'adresse qui développé pour une série d'activités faites, même ça qui m'a des gros déplacements. Il y a plusieurs initiatives solidarité qui mettaient campé pour compatriotes qui victimes de violences gang. C'est vrai ou limité, mais pas négligeable. Dans ce sens, l'initiative pour faire solidarité avec les peuple haïtien était une nécessité dans tout niveau. À niveau politique, à niveau social, culturel, économique et la trier, solidarité ça yo nécessaire. Ensemble pour yo Caraïbes plus fort, vive l'unité entre peuple yo, vive Haïti. Merci pour l'attention.
Thank you for sharing, Wisvel. Thanks for all that information. If you have any questions for Wisvel, please put them in the chat. It's a lot to have to go through, especially without the sort of Caribbean solidarity that we'd want and need and expect. And that's the purpose of our meeting here today, to ensure that we get the knowledge of what's happening in different parts of the Caribbean, but also to build those bridges of solidarity that we need to move forward. As you think of your questions, I'm going to introduce our next speaker because the topics are related. And so as the presentation goes on, you can take the time to ask your questions of both Wisvel and Dr. Minott. All right. Let me stop sharing. All right, so our final guest will educate us on the situation of Haitian refugees in Jamaica. Welcome, Dr. Dennis Minott. He is a research physicist, educator, and green resources specialist who serves as a vocal advocate for education reform, energy sovereignty and democratization, and the just treatment of Haitian refugees. He has authored several articles raising humanitarian concerns about Jamaica's deportation practices toward Haitian asylum seekers. Dr. Minott's writings urge us to consider not merely specific policies, but the fundamental principles that should bind the region together. Welcome, Dr. Minott. Go ahead. Dr. Minott, are you hearing me? Oh, thanks for sharing your email, Margaux. Emily, someone was asking for your email as well, if you'd like to share. While Dr. Minott is getting ready, I'll ask you a comment from Emma. I understand that Haitians need to obtain a $350 a US $350 visa to visit Jamaica. Do you have any thoughts on the dynamics of immigration within the Caribbean and how is this affecting the political process? Jamaica automatically immediately deports Haitian refugees who land on our shores. I think a lot of this will be covered in the next presentation. Thanks so much for your comment and question, Emma. All right, I see Dr. Minott is on, but your mic is muted. If you could unmute for us, please.
Hello, good afternoon to everybody, my brothers throughout the Caribbean, and the wonderful hosts and the group of panelists to which I belong. I am very exercised at this moment to talk about two things. If you don't mind, it's important I state a few things about myself first. First of all, I am a Maroon and a Jamaican Maroon and a very Jamaican. I'm a bit of a polyglot, multicultural. I've worked in many places and I understand how injustice can affect people in all kinds of ways. Now, I write. I can speak, but I write. And if you don't mind, I'd like to speak on two things that have exercised me greatly. One has to do with the question I ask. When Haiti knocked, who answered? That's one. And I do notice that Margaux spoke much today about environment in Dominica. It so happens that yesterday was Wednesday, the 23rd of June, and the most momentous of July, and the most momentous thing happened in the World Court, the International Court of Justice. One of the biggest trials that ever was concluded and the ruling made yesterday. It is about climate justice and so forth. I was so moved by that ruling that I took to writing again last night. So, if you don't mind, instead of speaking extemporaneously, I'd like to read two things which represent something I want to say to the Caribbean, to all my brothers and sisters in the Caribbean. The first thing, and that's the primary thing on my mind right now, though, Haiti. Let us begin with a simple, searing question. When Haiti knocked, who answered? In Portland, Jamaica, 42 Haitian souls arrived above after a perilous journey by sea. Among them, an expectant mother. They fled. Hold on, just a moment, please. Just a moment, please. Right. Yes. Among them, an expectant mother. They fled terror, rape, starvation, kidnap, and societal collapse. In return, they received no hearing, no interpreter, no asylum, no nothing. What they received was only force. Their boat set alight, their rights denied, their hopes extinguished. This was not merely a breach of international obligation. It was a collapse of betrayal. For Haiti is no stranger at our gate. Haiti, speaking of myself and speaking of many people in Portland and the Maroons of Jamaica, to us, Haiti is family. Haiti is ancestor, and Haiti is mirror. Let us remind ourselves of what we already knew. We know that in 1804, Haiti emerged as the first free Black republic of the modern age. Toussaint Louverture, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, Henri Christophe. These are not merely Haitian names. They are world historic. They shattered the myth of white supremacy by defeating Napoleon's legions. They inspired uprisings from Brazil to Belize. They gave refuge to Simon Bolivar, demanding the abolition of slavery in exchange for support. Haiti paid forward, and so we must ask, why have we not paid back? People speak of debt. Haiti knows debt. France, its former enslaver, demanded reparations, not for loss of land, but for loss of property, human beings, 150 million gold francs. Today, if you were to convert those gold francs by troy weight, it would be worth 92 billion US dollars, paid by Haiti on the threat of renewed war, paid until 1947. That act of economic strangulation lies at the root of Haiti's present poverty. That is not mere mismanagement, that is punishment, a penalty for daring to be free. Then followed the American occupation, the Duvalier. UN introduced cholera, assassinations, a litany of unfulfilled promises, and barbecue. And still Haitians rise, they sail, they pray, they knock at Jamaica's door. And how do we, the rest of the Caribbean, respond? CARICOM has in large part remained silent. Regionalism, that much vaunted principle, vanishes when Haitian children cry upon our shores. OECS, silent. The Caribbean Court of Justice, silent. Our universities and churches, largely silent. And the hypocrisy is stifling. We Jamaicans, Bajans, Trinis, Antiguans, we know what it is to seek sanctuary. We have overstayed visas in the UK, the USA, Canada. We have pleaded our cases and often received mercy. Yet now, when it is our turn to extend that mercy, we bolt the door. Matter of fact, we slam the door in Jamaica. We deport husbands from their wives, torch the meager possessions of those fleeing death. Friends, this is not neutrality. I am a very loyal Jamaican, but I have to admit it is hostility, and it is targeted, tailored, bespoke, reserved almost uniquely for Haitians. Because Venezuelans, Cubans, Mesoamericans, when they drift ashore to Jamaica, they often receive process, most times, sometimes even hospitality. But Haitians are met with boots of the government, bonfires of the government, and the bureaucratic fragility of the government of Jamaica. Let me say this plainly. This is not immigration policy. This is betrayal and possibly for 30 pieces of silver. We must ask boldly, who benefits? A quiet word from Washington? An IMF nod? Contracts? Beachfront property? Political favors? Who sold our shame tree? Who shattered our moral compass? Some have argued that we in the Caribbean are too poor to help. But this is not about charity. It is about kinship, about justice, about doing the right thing. Could CARICOM not resettle just even 100 Haitian families across 15 nations? Could Jamaica not host 25 families? Could we not empower our churches, our mosques, our schools, our community councils to assist? Could we not at the very least offer hearings, triage, a translator, and a few hot meals for even 3 weeks? What we choose to do now, in our silence or action, will become the history our children inherit. What will my great-grandchildren read in the history of how Jamaican nation treated Haitians? And I fear that unless we act, they will read Jamaica forgot who first lit the torch. Barbados muted the drum. Trinidad shut its ears. CARICOM chose comfort over courage. But friends, we can still write a different ending. Not a Haitian ending. A Caribbean renaissance rooted in empathy, guided by memory, and governed by justice. Let us honor Haiti, not only with our words, but with our laws, not only with our pity, but with our policies, not only in our history books, but in our border stations, classrooms, churches, and kitchens. Because hate is not a disruption of the Caribbean conversation. Haiti is the conversation. Haiti is the call to conscience. And let me end where I began. When Haiti knocked, who answers? Let us say together, we shall. And I'm a very practical man. There are people even in Stronger Caribbean Together who will tell you that I work very much with young people. I'm a mentor. And it strikes me that one of the tragedies that is unfolding in Haiti today is that education of the young people has been severely disrupted. Not only across the country, but particularly in Port-au-Prince, in Artibonite, in Cap-Haïtien, education has been severely disrupted. And I want to make not only the suggestion that we parcel out some families of Haitians throughout the CARICOM and Guyana and Suriname and Belize. I would suggest that each high school in the Caribbean, as a practical thing, each high school in the Caribbean assign to every form a high school student of equivalent age, and that Jamaicans and people in the diaspora of the Caribbean contribute to a fund to place those young people and move them through the English-speaking Caribbean high school systems until they are ready to go off to universities. We can solve that problem too with a similar arrangement within our universities in English, from the north in Belize and Bahamas right through to Suriname in the south. If it's even one person per year group per course, we can afford it. And it will mean that an entire generation or several generations of Haitians that are likely to be damaged by what is happening in Haiti could at least have some hope of having an educated little cadre of young people to help run that country, take over the reins, and not let Haiti become exploited. There was a time when Haiti was the pearl of the Caribbean, and I believe it can be again. It set the tone for much of the Black world. How could we dare neglect Haiti at this time? But I must desist, because there's another matter I want to deal with, having to do with what happened in the World Court yesterday. So give me a moment while I just change topics. Just a moment.
Thank you, Dennis. While you change topics, I'll just read from some of the comments. Someone was asking if the shootings were based off of gang violence, but Samia answered with a quote, "While the world fixates on gang violence tearing Haiti apart, the real architects of destruction remain comfortably invisible, protected by a conspiracy of silence that spans continents. Behind every massacre, Every displaced family, every bullet fired, lies a carefully orchestrated business model run by 6 oligarch dynasties. Right, go ahead, Dr. Minott.
Yes, thank you so very much. Here is my second presentation. And I must tell you that I wrote into the night on this one. I am an renewable energy. The United Nations call me an expert. They pay me as an expert. And I belong to a group called Verde Siempre Enerplan. Now, the title of this presentation is The Moral and Legal Imperative to Criminalize Climate Change Denial Across CARICOM. I repeat, the moral and legal imperative to criminalize climate change denial across CARICOM. Jamaica and the wider CARICOM community find themselves today on the very front line of a planetary crisis, one in which denial is not only dangerous, but given the existential scale of harm, ought to be recognized and prosecuted as a crime. In light of a recent international legal judgment, mounting scientific consensus, and the very real threat to Caribbean societies' future existence, it is time to call for nothing short of the criminalization of climate change denial throughout our region. The World Court's ruling climate change responsibility now has legal weight. On July 23rd, 2025, that's yesterday, the International Court of Justice, the UN's principal judicial organ, delivered a historic advisory opinion. All states have a legal obligation to act decisively against greenhouse gas emissions and to cooperate intentionally to do so. Critically, this includes adhering to the Paris Agreement 1.5 Celsius global warming limit. The court underscored that if nations breach these environmental duties, they incur legal responsibility. They must stop wrongful conduct, guarantee non-repetition, and provide full reparation depending on circumstance. This is not simply environmental housekeeping. It is about securing the fundamental conditions of life for present and future generations. As the Secretary General Antonio Guterres declared, this is a victory for our planet, for climate justice, and for the power of young people to make a difference. For Jamaica, a nation already battered by intensifying hurricanes, coastal flooding — I live just a few miles away from St. Margaret's Bay, for example — and drought right here in Portland, what used to be the rainiest parish in Jamaica, the stakes could not be higher. The stakes could not be higher. The science is settled. Further delay or active obstruction is a betrayal of the people's right to safe, habitable homeland. Why climate change denial must be criminalized? 1. Climate denial is willful harm. Climate change denial in 2025 is not honest skepticism, but a calculated act of recklessness in the face of overwhelming evidence, like refusing to shout fire in a burning building. Denial delays action, perpetrates harm, and can lead to loss of life and economic devastation. Denialists obstruct public understanding, malfunction policy, and distort markets, all ultimately costing lives in small island developing states such as ours, where each year brings new record-breaking disasters. These are not abstract arguments, they are essential. Second point, international law now backs stronger domestic action. The International Court of Justice's advisory opinion matters for national legal reforms. It provides that environmental protection is not optional or a matter of opinion. It is an enforceable standard undergirded by treaties to which Jamaica and CARICOM members are signatories. Human rights and environmental stewardship are legally entwined. A degraded climate is an assault on everything from the right to housing to the right to life. If the Caribbean is serious about these obligations, criminalizing the deliberate dissemination of climate denial becomes a logical extension of our duty to protect ourselves and future citizens. My third point, precedents exist for outlawing existential harm. Society does not tolerate the willful propagation of deadly lies. Holocaust denial, for example, is criminalized in numerous jurisdictions because such speech is linked to incitement and future harm. Tobacco industry executives who promoted doubt about cancer links were eventually held liable for public health damages, and in some countries, they were jailed. Is climate denial, given objective evidence of human-caused catastrophe, any less egregious? For Jamaica and CARICOM, climate denial is a direct attack on sovereign survival and should be so treated under the law. The need to criminalize renewables fraud. Hand in hand with denying climate reality comes an equally insidious trend, misrepresenting non-renewable energy sources as renewable. At Través del Caribe, promoters of fossil fuels or nuclear fuel schemes have taken to mismarketing their products as clean or green in slick public relations campaigns, hoping to secure policy favoritism, investments, and public trust. This is not harmless puffery, it is fraud, one that, if proven deliberate in court, should carry criminal penalties, including imprisonment and significant financial forfeiture. Such misrepresentation distorts the market, sabotages decarbonization efforts, and delays genuine transition to sustainable sources. As international law now makes clear, such bad faith conduct not only harms the credibility of the renewable sector, but places entire populations at unjustifiable risk. Let the law in Jamaica and CARICOM send an unambiguous message. Anyone found guilty of this duplicity will answer for their fraud in a criminal court. Now, I want to deal with a phenomenon that is plaguing social media, to which many Caribbean people, most Caribbean people, subscribe. I'm going to talk about dealing with manufactured consensus and billionairing in disinformation. The word billionairing is a syllogism that I have coined. Billionering, billionairing, disinformation. No call for legal reform would be complete without exposing the real-world puppet masters of Caribbean climate confusion. the so-called billionairing character operating across Jamaica and other islands, who, according to multiple reports, publishes under a web of at least 7 pseudonyms to create a false appearance of consensus. This deliberate manufacture of echo chambers in comment sections, media, and policy debates is not free speech. It is organized deception, trading public trust for private gain, and is deeply corrosive to social and ecological stability. CARICOM legislators must move swiftly to enact laws that, one, make climate denial and disinformation a criminal offense, two, specifically bar the presentation of non-renewables as renewables, and three, empower courts to prosecute coordinated disinformation campaigns, particularly those with clear economic incentives to muddy the climate waters. The existential stakes for the Caribbean. Failure to address climate change poses nothing less than an existential risk to humanity and to large swathes of biodiversity, as irreversible ecosystem damage, resource crises, and mass extinctions accelerate. Food and water insecurity, more intense hurricanes, rising seas, and dying coral reef will hit Jamaica and its neighbors first and worst. Yep. This isn't merely a policy preference, but a matter of survival and justice. Continuing emissions are already driving severe weather, ocean acidification, and global destabilization. Where I live, it's over 500 feet above sea level. It's normally relatively cool and windy. But climate change right now has me having to have cooling systems in my normally cool house. And what happens in August, even in September? It's very real for us. It may be minor to say you're feeling hot, but what about those people who are dying in Tuvalu, in other places in similar latitudes of the tropics, in Europe, in India, in parts of Pakistan? Climate change is very real, and it is related, clearly related to many of the things I'm railing against. But let me conclude. I believe the moment of courage is now. To criminalize climate denial is not to curtail debate or punish scientific disagreement. It is to set a limit on deceit in the face of a clear and present and future danger. A limit that must also apply to energy fraud and organized disinformation. Legalizing inaction or falsehood is not neutrality, but complicity in harm. Let me read it again. Legalizing inaction or falsehood is not neutrality, but complicity in harm. I say that to some Jamaican ministers of government, and probably some in the opposition too. The Caribbean, as one of the planet's most vulnerable regions, has both the right and the duty to draw this legal line. For the sake of all Jamaicans, all CARICOM peoples, and indeed the wider human family, the time to act with clarity, courage, and conviction is now. Let the law recognize and punish climate denial and greenwashing for what they are: existential crimes against humanity. And, ladies and gentlemen, people of the Caribbean, people of CARICOM in particular, I want to commend the organizers of this forum, this presentation to the region, and I have been honored to be asked. And I thank you all very much, and particularly one person that I briefly had a chance to mentor. She was from Belize, and she was the only member of my group, AQuest, that came from Belize at that time. I'm so delighted to just give a shout out and a nod, not only to Stronger Caribbean Together, great name, but to Samia, Andrewin, Miranda. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Minott. This will not be the end of our discussions. We will continue Political Pulse, and we have our fundraising event this Saturday. The information is in the chat, so this won't be the last time you see us. So if you have any unanswered questions, we will be posting on social media what is the next step, because we want to see a stronger Caribbean together, which includes trying to remove those barriers for our Haitian refugees in Jamaica, and for any Haitian traveling into Jamaica that has to pay those exorbitant fees. We will be we'll be releasing statements towards this, and we want everyone here to support whatever action we take going forward. So thank you all for attending the first iteration of Political Pulse. It was my honor to serve as your host, and an extra special thank you to our guest speakers, Emily DeCou, Margaux LaRocque, Wisvel Mondélice, and Dr. Dennis Minott. We appreciate you for your tireless work and for sharing your time with us today. This event is supported by the Open Society Foundations and is part of the UE-based project on disaster capitalism in the Caribbean. And to our guests, thank you for taking your time to learn a little bit more about the Caribbean solidarity that we're building together. On that note of solidarity, even if you can't make it to our fundraiser this Saturday, which is happening in Jamaica at Cafe Rosa at 1 Grosvenor Terrace in Kingston, you can still donate clicking the link in the chat. Even if you're not in Jamaica, even if you're not attending, you can donate your ticket to someone else, or you can just donate for the fun of it. We appreciate you. Thank you. Is someone trying to say something? Go ahead, Wisvel.
Could you cut off the music? Music. Can you put it off?
The music?
No, sorry, guys. I'm late to pick up my son. I'm getting in from Uber, and I wanted to say something, but the Uber driver has music on, so I'm asking him. Sorry about that.
Okay, Wisvel, your hand is up. Go ahead. All right, if there are no other comments, that was my closing. Thanks again to everyone. And we will see you going forward in our next couple of events.